Thank you to the program directors. As she said, we shall respectfully request that all of us stand for my grandfather-in-law's obituary, Comrade Eric Stalin Mtshali, the man of steel. Comrade Eric Stalin Mtshali was born in Claremont in Durban on the 20th of November 1933. He was a recipient of the National Order of Mendi for bravery in silver in recognition of his excellent contribution to the fight against the oppressive and racist apartheid regime. He attended both primary and secondary school in Claremont and was introduced to the struggle when he was a high school learner by Comrade Wilson Cele, who was the district secretary of the South African Communist Party. Comrade Mtshali was an amateur boxer at school. Claremont was declared a so-called freehold area, meaning that it was one of the few settlements in South Africa where black people were allowed to buy and own property. Comrade Cele introduced Comrade Stalin to the local ratepayers association. Comrade Mtshali later discovered that their meetings every Sunday were actually African National Congress meetings. He and the four of his friends who were drawn closer to the association used to sing, particularly the struggle song, Maibuye Africa. However, at the time, they did not fully comprehend what that meant in a broader context in which they had become closely associated with the members of Ratepayers Association, who were known as Amapegula Ikoni, literally meaning troublemakers, but revolutionary. Revolutionaries in its proper meaning in the movement. Comrade Cele worked together with Comrade Herikwala, who later became known as the Lion of the Midlands, as well as with Comrade Stephen Dlamini and Marimutu Pragalathan MP Naika. These comrades influenced Comrade Mtshali to join the SACP in 1957. At that time, the party was an underground organization following its banning by the apartheid regime in 1950 under the Suppression of Communism Act. It therefore operated almost entirely as a form of secret society into which recruitment was preceded by thoroughgoing investigation, screening, and targeted induction and advanced training on an identified recruit. Comrade Mtshali joined the ANC a year after his recruitment as a member of the South African Communist Party. By this time, he had already started accumulating experience of work in mass organizations, having joined the trade unions in 1950 and 1951. Another struggle stalwart who participated in shaping Comrade Mtshali's political and ideological worldview was Comrade Rusty Bernstein. It was Comrade Cele who introduced Comrade Mtshali to trade union organizations while he was still a high school learner, during which period he worked on a casual basis at the Durban dock and harbour during weekends and school recess. As a young man, Comrade Mtshali wanted to follow a career that would help him make money. However, he was not convinced until Comrade Cele gave him a pamphlet titled The Three Sources and Three Component Parts of Marxism by Vladimir Lenin, the historic leader of the Great October Socialist Revolution that took place in Russia in 1917. This engagement succeeded in convincing Comrade Mtshali to change his mind. He was also influenced by a section in the pamphlet stating that people have always been victims of deceit and that will remain so until they examine the class interests that underpin economic and other social phenomena. Comrade Mtshali started trade union organizing for the Dock and Harbour Workers Union in 1951, when he was still a casual worker, loading and unloading goods from the ships. At that time, he was paid a mere 15 shillings per week. And during this time, he started attending political classes and workshops organized by the union and became active in the struggle for a living wage and improved employment conditions. He became involved in the formation of the South African Congress of Trade Unions, SACTU, in March 1955. SACTU became part of the Congress Alliance, together with the ANC, the Congress of Democrats, the Colored People's Congress, and the South African Indian Congress. While in theory, the Congress Alliance was legally made up of these 5 formations, in practice, the SACP, which was then underground, and from which Comrade Mtshali was receiving systematic political education and ideological training, was the 6th component. Its members and leaders were active in the other Congress Alliance formations and formed part of their leadership in organizing the Congress of the People that adopted the Freedom Charter on 26 June 1955. Comrade Mtshali was one of the tens of thousands of volunteers who participated in collecting the freedom demands of the people countrywide in the democratic consultation process that led to the writing of the Freedom Charter. One of the first major responses by the apartheid regime was the banning of the entire SACTU leadership, the ANC in 1960, as well as other formations. The SACP and the ANC responded by establishing Umkhonto weSizwe, the MK, Spear of the People, Lerumo la Setjhaba, in 1961. Comrade Mtshali, who became affectionately known as Comrade Stalin, Man of Steel, was among the first comrades who were prepared to pay the highest price of their lives in the struggle for liberation, and accordingly joined Umkhonto weSizwe. He was one of those, the most advanced and resolute cadres who, based on his communist conviction, directly linked this struggle for the national democratic revolution to socialism, a transition, according to his belief, from the oppressive and exploitative system of capitalism and its social and environmental consequences to a classless society free from all forms of class oppression, inequalities, exploitation, and domination. Comrade Mtshali left South Africa in July 1962 and went into exile without an opportunity to inform his family. 8 years later, having had no contact with them, his first wife, Jabu Sibisi, passed on. He married his second wife, Thokozile Mtshali, near Makubu in 1980. She passed on in 2012, after they had been separated for 19 years. Comrade Mtshali was deployed to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics for military and intelligence training. He spent 2 terms at the party school in the Soviet Union. He was later deployed to receive further training in Cuba. On his return, he was deployed to the Umkhonto weSizwe's first military base in Tanzania and appointed Chief of Personnel. He worked under comrades Moses Kotane, John Beaver J.B. Marks, and Moses Mabida. Comrade Kotane was also the South African Communist Party General Secretary, the longest serving ever. Comrade Mtshali was elected to the Central Committee of the party in 1971. The same year he started serving as the chief representative of the African National Congress in Tanzania, a role he played for 5 years until 1976. Comrade Stalin became one of the founding members of the Intelligence Division of the African National Congress, and until his last breath, the last surviving of its co-founders. Together with comrades Chris Hani, Benson Mtshali, and Don Nangu, they founded The Dawn, a weekly journal of Umkhonto weSizwe, of which he was the editor from 1964 to 1969. Comrade Mtshali's involvement in political education using the magazine The Dawn provided a clear direction on various strands of thought among the soldiers who were trained in the Soviet Union and in China, respectively, especially during the Sino-Soviet split. Man of Steel received further training while in Tanzania, and thereafter he was deployed to Egypt together with Comrade Lambert Muloi for special higher training to lay the basis for the future political military campaigns against the apartheid regime. Comrade Mtshali served in a crucial unit that started the sabotage missions against the apartheid regime. He handled all his tasks with extreme care and dedication. In his capacity as the Chief of Personnel, he was also responsible for transporting Umkhonto weSizwe members and military hardware in one of the crucial military programs across the Zambezi River. Together with about 40 Umkhonto weSizwe combatants, Comrade Mtshali attempted to enter South Africa in 1970, but the mission was recalled after they realized that it was compromised. He had participated in the Wenki and Spolilo campaigns in 1967, in which he commanded 12 Umkhonto weSizwe and Zimbabwe African People's Union combatants, ZAPU's combatants, to rescue a section of the Lutuli detachment that had been surrounded by the forces of the oppressor regime in then Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. The combatants crossed the river in 3 dinghies, 2 of which capsized, with most of the occupants being attacked by crocodiles, necessitating a new rescue mission inside a rescue mission. Comrade Mtshali was one of the central figures in the James Bond unit, which managed to smuggle firearms and carried out fully fledged sabotage operations against the apartheid regime. After the mid-1970s, Man of Steel was deployed to work as a SACTU representative at the World Federation of Trade Unions, WFTU, in Prague, in then Czechoslovakia. He had sacrificed a lot in building the proletarian, class-oriented trade union movement in South Africa and had accumulated sufficient experience in trade union organizing from his dedication and selfless service to the workers. At one point, he had no income and survived on bananas as a daily lunch whilst organizing workers in South Africa. Comrade Stalin continued to serve workers with outstanding loyalty, and the WFTU deployed him to establish trade unions in many parts of Africa. He worked in Ethiopia, in the Sudan, and in Morocco, pioneering the development of the progressive trade union movement. He formed the first open trade unions in Ethiopia during the time of President Mengistu Haile Mariam. Previously, trade unions were suppressed in Ethiopia. The WFTU further deployed Comrade Mtshali to revive the trade union movement in the Sudan after the massacre of communists, including the General Secretary of the Communist Party in that country. He went to Sudan to carry out work despite the danger that the mission involved. The Communist Party in the Sudan, which remained resilient during that period of brutal attacks, helped the Men of Steel to revive the country's trade union movement. South African Communist Party assigned comrades Joe Matthews and Comrade Mtshali to establish the Communist Party of Lesotho. The assignment signified the critical role that he played in the work of the party and symbolized the trust that he had earned. In Lesotho, he worked among other revolutionaries with Comrade Mokgafi Sikena. The mission was very crucial in Lesotho, both in its national and international context, as well as paving the way to bringing down the apartheid regime in South Africa. During the 1980s, Men of Steel became involved in reviving the trade union movement inside South Africa. It was during this period that many of the affiliates of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, and the Federation itself were established. COSATU became SACTU's successor in the National Democratic Revolutionary Alliance, headed by the African National Congress. Comrade Mtshali was also a member of the ANC-headed Revolutionary Council. And he returned to South Africa in 1991 after the unbanning of the South African Communist Party, the African National Congress, and other political organizations. Following the April 1994 democratic elections, he served as the Deputy Commissioner of Police and Crime Intelligence in KwaZulu-Natal from 1995 to the year 2000. He was nominated to serve as a ward councillor of the African National Congress in eThekwini in the year 2000. Despite a wealth of many years of national and international experience that could have enabled him to serve in a senior state structure nationally, he chose to serve the people as a ward councillor, a role he played for 4 years until 2004, when he was elected to serve as a member of parliament. He served as a member of the parliamentary portfolio committees on labor, on education, and housing, now human settlements. At the time of his death, Comrade Stalin, he was the longest-serving central member of the South African Communist Party, the Central Committee member. At its 14th Congress in July 2017, the party conferred on him one of its highest awards, the Moses Kotane Award, for his excellent service to the peace-loving people of South Africa and the world working class struggle for social emancipation. He became a lifetime member of the Central Committee of the SACP. He passed away on Friday, the 12th of October this year after a long illness. He's survived by his third wife, Ukoko Qinile Kunene Mtshali, and the daughters, Ulindiwe Mtshali and Amanda Kunene, 7 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. Amoya wa khe o robalela kagiso, may his soul rest in peace. Amen.